Is it possible to preserve and recreate the agricultural and industrial revolution and evolution of the United States, a period of nearly 3 centuries, in a space of only 100 acres? If it were, you might expect a man like Henry Ford to be able to do it. And he did. This is the Henry Ford Museum in Greenfield Village in Dearborn, Michigan, a complex of indoor and outdoor exhibits so expansive in scope and rigorously faithful to detail, it would take several hours to show you every aspect of it. So in the few minutes we do have, we'll show you just a few of its many treasures. Greenfield Village is an accurate reproduction of a turn-of-the-century Midwest community. These buildings truly capture the flavor of small-town life when America was beginning to enter its great industrial growth period. Henry Ford's contribution to putting America on wheels is one of history's most enduring stories. His concept of constructing automobiles on an assembly line and pioneering the use of interchangeable parts made it possible to price his cars low enough to enable the average person to drive one. In fact, he wanted his own employees to be able to afford the cars they built. That charged the economy. Modern roads were constructed due to this automotive boom. America began to think in terms of what life would be like, thanks to our newfound mobility. And great men like Henry Ford had the ideas to make it all a reality. Thomas Edison was one of those men, and over the years, he and Henry Ford developed a strong friendship, along with men like Harvey Firestone of tire fame and Edward Burroughs of adding machine fame. Edison's actual Menlo Park, New Jersey laboratory is now an exhibit at the museum. And with Ford's love of transportation and Edison's background with electricity, seeing a solar electric-powered vehicle driving past the museum should be no surprise. And speaking of space-aged vehicles, the Lunar Rover that astronauts drove on the moon is also at the museum. The Henry Ford Museum building is the product of long hours of careful planning and comprehensive research, along with continuous updates and additions. Many of the vehicles on display receive expert restoration, and no expense is spared in restoring the cars to better than original condition, both inside and out. At the Henry Ford Museum, new exhibits are always being proposed and discussed to help the museum reflect the ever-shifting look of American society. And as you might expect, in any museum that bears the name Ford, there are cars. But much more than the cars, there was a strong effort to connect the automobile with its abiding impact on how our lives changed around it. This Texaco Station is a perfect replica of the neighborhood service center where Americans filled up every day. It's complete right down to the stack of motor oil cans. And this tank truck delivered heating oil to homes in the 50s all over the country. And back in the 50s, McDonald's signs looked like this. And 1956 Chevy convertibles like this were driving their proud owners in for a 15-cent hamburger. And before McDonald's, diners like this one were scattered across the map of America. A diner like this was always a welcome sight for any hungry motorist. And this one is an actual eatery that was moved from Massachusetts to the museum and restored to its present condition. It's complete right down to the eggs and bacon. One of the great features of the Henry Ford Museum is its hands-on elements. You can ride an antique high-riser bicycle, or watch kids learn the skill and dexterity needed to build a functional assembly line. Harold K. Scramstad Jr., the president of the Henry Ford Museum, talks about what he thinks makes this 100-acre timepiece so unique.
It's just the authenticity of all the details. It's those kinds of things that really make people feel at home in our museum. It really establishes a human relationship between me, the visitor, and the stuff out there. People don't come to this diner to learn about some great sociological study of the diner in American life or such. They come to say, gee, I wonder where that came from. I wonder how it relates to me. I wonder how that may set a signal about where we're going.
Recreating the sights, sounds, and lifestyles of what was America's ever-changing childhood on a mere 100 acres is quite an accomplishment. But being able to show you its vast array of memorabilia in only a few minutes might be an even more implausible task. Plan on seeing the Henry Ford Museum in Greenfield Village for yourself someday soon. It's where the past and future all come together at this tiny crossroad of history in Dearborn, Michigan.